Something is happening in the highest, most secret corners of the aerospace world. And it's not a budget cut, it's not some corporate shakeup, it's an erasure. A systematic vanishing of our most brilliant minds, the people who hold our deepest secrets. And today, we're conducting a forensic audit of how they disappeared.
So let's just get right to it, because this is the core question we have to ask. We're not talking about a string of bad luck or a few personal tragedies. According to the source material we're digging into, this is a deliberate pattern. It's a statistically impossible cluster of deaths and disappearances, and it's targeting a very, very specific type of person.
You know, to even begin to understand what's allegedly going on, we have to completely reframe the way we're looking at this. These aren't just separate, unfortunate events. The source material argues that what we're actually seeing are the casualties of a hot war, a war being fought entirely in the shadows. This is what it calls the Gnostic Indictment.
And here is the core allegation, right here. The idea is that the bureaucratic dam that has held back this secret for nearly a century is starting to crack. And when the system can no longer hide behind red tape and top-secret stamps, it falls back on its most basic, its most brutal protocol, making the problem disappear permanently. So who are these targets? The source gives them a name. They're called the engines. Now, these aren't just people with theories. These are the hands-on people. The engineers, the physicists, the materials scientists, who have, according to the source, literally put their hands on recovered non-human technology. They're not just reading the blueprints. They're the ones who know how the machine is actually built. They are the instruction manual.
And that right there is what supposedly makes them so dangerous. The key word is data, hard physical data. It's one thing to have a theory, right? It's another thing entirely to have a piece of metal in your hand that could, hypothetically, turn a wild story into a prosecutable criminal case. The engines are the ones holding that proof.
Okay, so let's get into the audit itself. Let's look at the evidence laid out in the source material. Because this isn't just a list of names. It's presented as a roster of casualties, a roster of the damned.
Now, the timing here is absolutely critical. This isn't something spread out over decades. We're talking about a super tight 36-month window where these events just spike. And what else is happening at the exact same time? UAP disclosure legislation is picking up serious steam in Washington. The source argues this is no coincidence. It's a reaction. It's a desperate, last-ditch effort.
And just look at the caliber of people on this list. I mean, these are not junior lab techs. We're talking about the director of materials at NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, the head of research at Wright-Patt, a top plasma scientist from MIT. These are the absolute titans, the heavy hitters of the entire scientific industrial complex.
So let's zoom in on a couple of these case files, because the details are where this whole thing gets really, really disturbing. First up, Monica Jacinto Reza. Think about her job for a second. Director of Materials at JPL. Her entire career was about analyzing stuff nobody had ever seen before. The source alleges she had access to metamaterials, that she knew the literal recipe for this recovered hardware. And then one day, poof, she vanishes while out on a hike, but leaves her phone, her wallet, all of her electronics behind. Who does that? It doesn't add up.
All right, next case. We're switching from the civilian side over to the military, and this is a huge one. Major General William Neal McCasland. This guy wasn't just some researcher in a lab coat, he was a commander at the legendary home of reverse engineering projects.
Wright-Patt Air Force Base. Come on, it's ground zero in UFO lore for a reason. And as the head of research there, McCasland wouldn't have just known the science, he would have known the logistics, the history, the inventory, where the hardware was. And then he just disappears. Leaves his phone, his wallet, even his glasses behind. The source claims this wasn't a man who planned to leave. This was a man who was professionally extracted from his own life.
So as you dig into these cases, you start to see that they aren't random. They actually fall into these really distinct categories. It's a playbook. The source calls it the silencing protocols, and each method has a very specific purpose and leaves behind a very specific signature.
So on the one hand, you have the disappearances. These are clean, quiet, no body, no evidence, just a big, lingering question mark that's designed to create confusion. But on the other hand, you have the loud and brutal kinetic hits. These are not meant to be quiet. They are a message, a public warning designed to terrify anybody else on the inside who might be thinking about talking. And when you actually chart them out over this short period of time, the balance is chilling. 4 disappearances, 4 very public killings, and 2 highly suspicious suicides. This doesn't look like random violence. It looks like a balanced portfolio of terror. It looks like a strategy.
And let's look at who got hit. Nuno Loureiro at MIT, he was a world expert on the exact kind of plasma physics in those infamous Navy UFO patents, the ones for tech that most people thought was impossible. Then there's Grillmair at Caltech, an exoplanet researcher, a guy literally looking for other worlds. The indictment here is that these weren't random crimes. They were targeted hits to destroy the human instruction manuals for this forbidden tech.
So what does this all add up to? The source material presents this not as an attack, but as a retreat, a frantic scorched earth policy designed to cover a withdrawal from any kind of public accountability.
And the motive is just brutally simple. It's a professional cleanup operation. As the light from public disclosure gets brighter and closer, the system is scrambling to bury the evidence and the living witnesses back in the dark.
See, it's all a race against time. And it was triggered by one thing. Congress started talking about amnesty for whistleblowers. But here's the thing. Amnesty is only a threat if you have credible witnesses with hard evidence. The engines are those witnesses. So, you take them off the board. You sever the physical link between the crimes and the public record. And the logic is just horribly simple. A dead scientist can't testify.
And this is the source's final damning conclusion, that these scientists aren't just victims of a crime. They should be seen as martyrs. They are casualties in a hidden war over a truth so profound that the powers that be are allegedly willing to kill to keep it a secret.
Which leaves us with one final, chilling question. This alleged purge, it isn't just about silencing the past, it's about crippling the future. If you eliminate the only people on the planet who truly understand this technology, if you destroy the human instruction manuals, who's left to read the hardware? What knowledge have we just lost? Maybe forever.